Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the National Parents Union. You're here with the nightly restorative check-in, and I'm Dr. Anjali Lafarie, for those of you that don't know me. Sorry about that, I didn't silence my phone here. Anyway, it is September 4th. I say this every show. I have no idea where the time goes. But anyway, I'm here in Arizona in this beautiful Sonoran desert on O'odham land. This show, the Nightly Restorative Check-In, is the brainchild of Marisol Queveda Rerucha. So the way that, at least my interpretation, right, of how I think she conceives of the Nightly Restorative Check-In, it's that chill time, right? It's that time to relax, to connect, to have that social, emotional kind of check-in and conversation with your loved ones. The show is focused on parents, caregivers, right? Anyone who kind of has children in their life, is responsible for someone in their life, and I'll say for me, to me, Fridays is that like curling up with the person that you love and that you care for, eating some good food and just relaxing, right? So I hope to bring that energy to you all here. I hope that we're a part of that Friday evening kind of wind down for you. I originally was a guest on Marisol's show way back when these lives started, which was sometime, I believe, back in March at the beginning of the pandemic. It's amazing to think that we have been doing this for so long, and that, in some ways I don't know if there's an end in sight. But anyway, so she brought me on because I am a hypnotherapist, a psychologist, and I'm also a professor. And on the first show, I taught a breathing pattern titled 478. And so I want to maintain the integrity of the show and continue on with that breath pattern. So I'm going to start with that. And then as always, then after that, I go into kind of a fuller introduction of myself. Okay, so let me explain 478. What you're doing is you are inhaling for 4 seconds, holding your breath for 7 seconds, and then exhaling for 8 seconds. And then we complete that cycle 4 times around. I'll count it out for you, so you don't have to, you don't have to kind of monitor yourself. If you get stuck at all, right, kind of the breath pattern feels awkward, especially if it's your first time, just catch us back on the 4 count, right, when you're inhaling. And, just practice with this. So I always sometimes tell the story that the first time I used this breath pattern, it wasn't natural for me. I felt kind of all like caught up, right, with my breath. And then I used it the second time around and it was super effective. And now I would say it's my go-to breath pattern. Yes, for myself, and then also for teaching other people. This breath pattern also is really effective if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't sleep. It's actually kind of back to my research to help you relax. It's wonderful for anxiety. And like I said, I use it to purely just center myself. I'm often running 100 miles a minute, kind of even at home, sadly. But I'm often running from one thing to the next. And a lot of times in my life, the things that I do are very different. So anyway, like I said, it just helps me transition. Okay, enough talking. So let's just kind of take a deep breath. But I always say uncross your body. If it's comfortable, you are welcome to close your eyes. In fact, I encourage you to close your eyes. And if that's not possible or not comfortable, then you can at least pick a focal point, maybe towards the ground, look at your lap, look at your feet or the floor, or something like that. All right. And as always, I need to get myself settled. There we go. So now go ahead and take your natural breath. And then this time as you inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release. Do your best to hold it for the entire 8 count. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release. Trying to extend that exhalation for the entire 8 count. 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and release. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Take a natural breath. All right. Forgive me for having a little misstep there on the 7 count, the last 7 count. But hopefully you're feeling a little bit more centered, a little bit more balanced. Hopefully there are some, your relaxation response, and you maybe have felt your shoulders drop. You've maybe felt, I always say, the waterways activated in your body, like maybe you feel teary, your stomach growled, you yawned, right? All of these are markers or indicators of the fact that you have entered a relaxation response. All right. So after this, like I said, I typically, right, I try to more fully introduce myself, right? I've started with who I am professionally, but it's really important for me to introduce who I am as far as my community, my people, my family. So I'm originally from Southern California. My father is Afro-Cuban and my mom is from Guatemala. On the Cuban side, we are Taino and Arawak, and then on the Guatemalan side, we hail from Maya territory. Those of you who have been with me since the beginning of me hosting the Friday shows, you got to meet my brother and sister. And I'm a mom. I have a 20-year-old daughter, and another identity marker that's really important for me is that I'm a widow. I'm also a member of the Siwa Patli Collective. So the Siwa Patli Collective, we focus on Indigenous mothering. We like to say that we support women and families from womb to tomb. So that's just a little bit about me. My goal, I've been really intentional about every person that I have brought onto the show. I think they are, I don't know if they're an example, but they're a part of my world and they tell you a little bit about me and my interests. And today's guest is no different. So we'll start to bring in, right, Judith Yanez. She's my colleague. She's my colleague, and she is somebody that I'm working with that has actually become my friend. She's a single mom to Nicole and Keith. And she, like I said, hosts the morning show for the Sindicato de Padres Nacional, and that's actually our morning show on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays in Spanish. And she hosts the Monday version, and that's actually how we connected. She's an NPU council member, and she's also the founding executive director of Rooted in Northwest Arkansas. Hello, comadre.
Hola. It's weird being on this side.
Totally. Yeah. And it's reversed because like you're usually bringing me in, right? And so I'm just sitting here chilling, right? And I found myself like, oh wait, like what is she thinking about the way that I'm introducing her,
I love it. And then we're speaking English instead of Spanish, so
we're just all off, so we'll probably go into Spanglish here in a moment, right? Just because like that's a thing. And we're used to speaking in Spanish, but it's amazing to kind of have you to host you, because you are often hosting me in this space, right? There's other ways that I host you. You know a little bit about this show, and you're also just like a wonderful fan and supporter, right, of the show. I always start off by asking people, how are you? But it's that deep check-in. So how is your world? How are you?
And I love that question, but I'm going to have to sit on it for a second because it's been a busy day. So I haven't really checked in with myself.
Well, actually, let me do this. Then I'll back you up even more. How was the breathing for you?
So I love it. Like the breathing, I catch myself when I can't sleep going back to yours or Marisol's shows to get the timing right, because I can't do it by myself.
Got you.
So I go back and watch the shows just to have those breathing moments.
That's so, I mean, thank you. Like there's no better plug. For those of you who, yes, so first go to NPU's page, but then if for some reason you could also YouTube it, and somebody could probably count you down as well. And then you can also in time kind of, everyone can start to learn their own, their own breathing cycle. Okay, so what's your relaxation response? So how do you know when you're in the zone?
I know because at first I can't breathe fully. Like it hurts, like I have asthma, so it hurts to breathe. And then at that last breath, it's like, oh, I can breathe now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're holding everything, like your tension, the shoulders drop, like you say. You just feel centered. You just know.
Well, and I was gonna say that it's that expansiveness, right? And so that's, what like you're saying, like how the light turned on in my eyes, right? Because that for me is one of the marks for sure of relaxation. But I think the widening of my eyes is like that's a space for actually inspiration. That's a space where like you can align with the things you want to align with, right? Because you don't have all these other distractions around you, so it makes me happy. And also I know what that feels like, right? That good feeling of like, oh, I got that good breath.
And it feels amazing. It's like, I'm here now, like I'm all powerful. But before it's like, I'm shriveled up and I can't breathe. So yeah, it's a power, like you just feel power in your shoulders. Stand
Yeah.
straight. Yeah.
I think about it too, just it's a way to arrive, it is. And that's a really like, that's probably a way that I should set it up, but others will sometimes mention that as well. Whenever we do anything at the beginning to open whatever space, right, we're in, we're doing that to arrive, we're doing that to get centered, we're doing that to transition, right? And so it's a nice arrival.
I'm here.
You are, I can feel you actually. You're getting more here. So now, this part of you, and you in this moment, and so don't even think about the day. You in this moment, how are you?
I'm just going to say, you've been with me the last month of how it's been a gruesome month of growth. I mean, it has. I hit a wall. But the last 2 days, I've been working in the community, helping some of our parents pay rent and bills. To hear their just weight of their shoulders just drop, like, are you joking with me? Like we were praying for this, we're in desperation. But all the work that I've done this month, I was really able to tune in a way that it wasn't codependency. Like I'm doing this to feel good, to feel something in me. From all the work, it's like, I now understand my purpose.
That's amazing.
It's huge because it was a struggle all month.
And so I want to honor that. I mean, yes, because I know you, and also just hearing the words, period, of just what it is to be in a time and a space of challenge, especially because you're the person who's needing to hold it together for folks, or maybe you feel that way, and you certainly hold it together, like for everyone that you host. I don't know if people like realize all the way this, I'm not going to say this to brag, but I'm going to say this, that like these shows get thousands of views. Like this show will probably get 7,000 or 8,000 views. That's kind of like the average, On a great day, it's going to get 10,000 shows. Some of our Spanish shows have gotten like 25, 26,000 views. So I'm only saying that to say that like, that's a big deal to hold all this stuff, and I know that you're humble and you don't think about it that way, but you're holding a lot. So I just want to like honor that, like by acknowledging it and like voicing it, naming it, and thank you in advance for all of that. And that like, it's okay for you to be tired.
No, and thank you for saying it. Like, I don't see it. Like, and that's, I'm saying right now, my passion is dangerous because you keep going and you keep going and you keep going, but you don't realize when you're burned out and then you're harming your body. And so my passion right now is dangerous for me. And so I have to be really in tune with my body. But I appreciate you saying that because I just keep going and never understand how I'm holding space for others.
Well, you're welcome. And yeah, I mean, it's energy. And so I don't, let me be selfish here and ask you, I'm naturally an extroverted person. But I'm an extrovert that over time and through like pain and loss and grief have discovered an introverted side of me. Regardless though, what it takes for me to host something, when I'm speaking, when I'm teaching, whatever it is, there is all this energy that goes outward that then the process of reeling that part of me back in literally takes time. It takes hours for me to reel all of Anjali back into herself. Do you experience anything like that?
Well, I'm going to tell you what I experienced with you because like I'm exhausted right now, and like I would have not. I'm going to be very vulnerable right now, but you hold space so well that I trust you, and then I'm like, Angeli has my back. Like I have no worries whatsoever right now. So thank you for that. And so I have to acknowledge that about you. Um, so you're like that warrior behind in a subtle way. Yep. Yep. Um, and so we have to acknowledge ourselves in each space. What's our power? And like what power we hold.
Thank you. It's an honor to hold you, and you hold me very well. You helped me. In fact, let me jump in with this. You actually helped me a lot. I was really tired this Monday, and you helped me. You helped me. You gave me an out. So like we are doing that for one another. And that's actually one of I think the beautiful things that's happening here at MPU that like people don't realize. This show, or excuse me, this organization, right, is very fledgling. It's very young, right? It started this year. And so then, but we've spent so much time together in this online space, and we are supporting one another and building friendship and watching one another grow. So, but let me let you go back to what you were going to say.
No, it's true. Like it's what's making me survive. It's what brought me to you, right? Like NPU. But we each hold space beautiful for each other, and we're there for each other. And at this time, but we push each other. We're not an echo chamber. It's like it's beautiful to watch.
Well, and also what I was thinking when you said we push each other, I mean, we push each other because the things that we ask of one another, like, I was on a Marita show, which is another, one of our other many hosts. And so this week, and so us wanting to kind of inviting people to one another's shows is great work. But again, it's also that like bringing up like, are we burning ourselves out, right? Are we doing too much? And like you said, we love it, right? So our passions can be dangerous, is what you said. If unchecked, right? They can be dangerous unchecked. But let's talk about this, because this is so how you and I are. Like we just delve into like these big topics. Is the passion dangerous, or is there something else behind it? So I'll be vulnerable, because this is something that I've been kind of working on, right? I'm super busy, like stupid busy. And I don't think that it's the passion that's made like that this media is turning into a new passion. I don't think it's that. I think it's the part of me that thinks that I need to be busy that's actually harming me. That whatever that tape is around productivity, whatever that tape is around, I'll put it, attention, whatever tape I have around not being able to kind of struggling to kind of say no to some professional opportunities, or feeling like something's going to pass me by. I think those are the things that are impacting me more than passion. Where does that land or resonate for you?
I think for me during this time, I'm learning, single mom, 20 years, surviving, go, 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 go. I don't know how to stop and think. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm having to go to therapy for help, because I can't do this by myself, of learning how to step back. And what is really a codependency mechanism, or what really is Judith? Try to understand, who really am I? And it doesn't help that I just turned 40 and I'm going to be an empty nester next year, like midlife crisis here, right? So I don't know how to answer that question, because I'm working still through that. I do know I'm listening to my body more now, and I can tell when I'm pushing myself too hard, and it's like, back up. Or I can't find myself I have to find the task that I'm doing, that it's the same mental capacity, because if I switch the capacity level, like that requires another processing, I get too exhausted and then I can't get my brain back to working again. So I don't know if that answers the question fully, because I'm still learning how to like identify those.
Yeah, well, I have follow-up questions, so when you're talking about like you have to make sure you're accessing the same brain capacity. So do you mean like if you're dealing with like the finances of Rooted, which we should talk about your organization here in 2 seconds, but if you're dealing with the financial aspect of your nonprofit Rooted versus providing support to your child, which is like something emotional, is that what you're saying? Like that disconnect is tough?
Definitely. And especially with Rooted, like I might have 20 job duties that would be 20 different jobs, finances, billing and data entry, and then the work in the community. So those all take different brain capacities.
Sure.
And when you think, multitasking is not good. Like we've sold ourselves that multitasking is amazing. Well, now with COVID, we're exhausted. Our brains are exhausted. We cannot multitask and function in that way. So, but because that was my way of being, now I have to go through therapy to figure out what that new pathway is. What's my new normal?
And I appreciate your vulnerability. And so you know that well, this is true, y'all. This is true for anyone in my life, punto period, right? Like if you're in my life and if you are vulnerable, I will match you, and even I just need a little bit of your vulnerability and I might even exceed it, and not that it's a contest, but my point is like, it's not that I'll match you and only go as far as you go. So, and I think that that's true for all of us, right? So when somebody is vulnerable, most of us try to match that energy because it calls us in, it's inviting, right? So I'm gonna, what you said, I appreciate you bringing up therapy, right? And bringing up the support that we need. And I'm gonna mirror and just say the same things, that there's some really deep stuff that I'm working on. So what I shared right now about like what's motivating me, that's all stuff I'm working through in therapy, really doing what in some ways is called the shadow work, like looking at like, oh, you think you're being nice, or you're deciding, you've made up in your head that you're kind and nice. And what part of you maybe just wants to get what she wants, through the guise of making myself indispensable, through the guise of busyness, right? Through the guise of like, I'm gonna make it hard for you to say no to me, through my kindness. No, I'm not out here, murdering people. I'm not harming people with that. But it's at a certain point, I'm realizing that it's not honest. And that's the parallel, like what you're making me think of even with what you're sharing, as opposed to me being direct and saying, hey, I'd like your attention. Hey, I'd like your love. Hey, I'd like whatever it is that I want from you, instead of feeling like I have to do this dog and pony show to get what I want.
Yeah, one of the things that I was working through this month is my constant need to chase people and to prove that I'm a good person. And it was like, and then you have to go back, why are you doing that? And so my therapist's name is Karen. And so I'm like, darn you, Karen, because I think the first, I started going back, and the first time that I went back, it was like she pulled a Band-Aid. And I'm so glad I took that week off, because it was, like you say, the shadow work, doing that shadow work is, I don't know if it hurts physically. I can't even explain it. You're just a mush of pain. That
a puddle, you're just a puddle.
And you're sitting there, and you just have to sit there.
And I think, and then what you said too, what's hard is then once you remove the Band-Aid, you don't know what to do in the in-between times. I'm actually there right now. And I'm actually really pushing hard to like not fill with attention, not fill with the distractions, and I don't want to call anyone and anything a distraction, but I know myself, right? And I'm trying really hard to notice. Of course I'm doing it, but I feel like I'm noticing more quickly. Like, don't fill that slot, don't fill that slot, don't fill that slot. Try to hang out in just the like, I don't really know what I'm doing right now with this new version of me that's trying to show up in the world,
Yeah, but I think the beautiful thing about COVID and this pandemic is we're all so exhausted, mentally and physically, that we don't have the energy to like fake who we are, you feel it right away.
Yes.
And so when I was sitting in that puddle of mush, I found myself like, oh, let me go get a Twinkie. And I could feel it automatically like, oh, what am I trying to stop there?
Mm, yes. It's, it's just resonating for me with you a lot. And we talk about that. We've talked about that, like the things that we do. So, that I was on a cleanse for 40 days, right? To kind of stop some of that automatic search for sugar, right? And other vices, vicios, right? That I have. But now I'm off of it. And so then the week after I noticed like, oh yeah, there was a lot of sugar. So then I was like, okay, I don't want to go back to, and it actually didn't feel good, right? So now is the work, right? We think the work is during that cleanse time, but no, the work is exactly what you said when you're like, oh, I want sugar. What's going on, And I appreciate that you brought it to the pandemic because like you said, the pandemic is making it so that we have to be still. Not only us, the world has to be still, right? And so the things that we don't like to look at, are popping up. And some of us are doing okay with that. Some of us are doing better with that. Even though I know you said it's difficult, I would still say that you're somebody who's thriving and doing well, because you are working on your soul and your spirit. You're working on your professional world. And not everybody has that opportunity, to do that. So I want to own that I hear all the privilege in the world that like you and I are sitting with right now. Around being able to talk about how hard it is to face ourselves when there are people who are losing their lives and people who are losing their homes and a multitude of things, right? Which is what part of what you deal with your nonprofit. So like, I want to make sure we talk about Rooted, and I know that you're, like you want to let your hair down, but Rooted needs some time too.
And no, it's so funny because I'm like, it's Friday. It's, office hours close. I need to stick. I've stuck my boundaries pretty well. Friday night, and even in the evenings, it comes a time, shut off. Balls are dropping, but I have to shut it off. But it is what keeps me going. And I think through this work this month, I realized why that passion was rooted. And mom said, like, I wish I would have followed my dreams. And when she said that, I'm like, oh, I understand why. I want to create like a space my mother would have had to have her dreams, And so with Rooted, primarily right now we're working with moms. We started off with education options. I believe children have to be in adequate environments. It's not so much of the titles like charter schools, independent, traditional public schools. It's such a battle, a political battle there. But for me, I strongly believe children need a space to learn. And sometimes when a space fails them, I believe they need options. Because I'm working with non-English speaking, immigrant, undocumented mamas that don't have the information to make these choices. They just have to put up what's, the situation that's given to them at schools, which is sometimes not healthy. So we started with education options. Through this pandemic, I am so excited because, grants became available. And so I applied for an intergenerational trauma therapy grant. And so very proud of this because the work at Rooted is basically the work that I have done as a mother to be able to give my children a quality education. And that would not happen unless I myself was doing the inner work, showing them, what it is to be a badass person, follow your dreams, fail, fall down. But you have to do it in a healthy way so you break those cycles and your children don't repeat them. And so it is a lot of work. But Anjali, these mamas, and so some of them have been with us for 2 or 3 years, because of the space that we have provided at Rooted, that you do your inner work, you challenge yourself, you model to your children. The therapist said that because of that, these moms were quickly able to go through therapy in a faster pace because they had already set, this precedence was already set.
They've developed resilience, which is a psychological term.
Yeah. And the other part is like, they'll say, you are our backbone. We know we can go and advocate for our kids because you have our backs. It's beautiful.
It is. And a lot of work for you too. So I'm going to acknowledge both things. It is beautiful. Thank you for for the glorious work. Thank you for healing yourself, right? And bringing up this intergenerational trauma, because we know, right? You know, in some of my traditions, we talk about that. Like, we think we're here, or I know I'm here because of my grandmother's prayers. In fact, I'm here because of 7 generations worth of, you know, grandmother's prayers.
Yep.
So the
Yep.
same thing, right? The healing that we do emanates in all directions. I was going to say both directions, but it's not a binary, right? It emanates in all directions. So that healing that you're doing and that you're encouraging your moms to do, they're going to reap. What's the metaphor I want here? They're going to reap the benefits, right, of that pretty immediately, and then so right is their progeny, right? So is their offspring, but then also it goes backwards, you know, and it's more than a belief, and I'm not going to get into like a debate, you know, with anyone to like explain it, right? People who get it, get it. So thank you for that work. It's heavy and it's hard.
Yeah, and someone asked me today, well, how do you create it? You know, what's the program? I'm like, you know, I really can't teach you because it's the space that I've created and I've modeled that, you know, like I model it with them. You know, it's not that I'm teaching this curriculum and I've never myself ever gone through this walk. And I'm like, so I can't teach you the space that I've created because it's like me that created that.
Well, that's such a Western analytical objective question, right? Give me the recipe, give me the steps, because I believe that I can, you know, not I, so that somebody may be believing, if I know the steps, I can recreate it. But no, when something is organic, when something, everyone has, you know, you've heard me, everyone has their own medicine, right?
Yeah.
We all have this toque, that little piece, that little, our flavor, our pinch of salt, right? Our sazon that we throw in there. And then also when something emanates from your being, what you create from your being, it doesn't have a recipe, right? It moment to moment, it's different, right? So yes, people can watch and they can model, right? And they can put in the building blocks, but it's not going to be the same way.
So I'm proud of that. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, as you should be, as you should be. So we will put in the links for Rooted in the comments section, or if we have our comadres in there, Vivette's in there, Maritza, if y'all want to throw in the Rooted link for us, thank you, because I know that they're super helpful. So that's amazing. That's amazing. All of the work that you're doing, all the work that you continue to do. Let me ask you, how during this pandemic, how have your professional roles shifted?
So we have limited Latino community leaders in the area. And so during a pandemic, nonprofits are called in to do the work. And so now it's like, okay, here, Judith, now you have the power to go and do the work, and we're looking at your work. And so like, it's like kind of like a pressure of, I'm this community leader now that I need to support my community. And so there's a extra, I don't know what the word to use, extra pressure, work, all in the middle of a pandemic. And so I think the one thing, like professionally, I'm growing. The doors are opening left and right. It's beautiful to watch. I haven't had time to process it, but like, what is it that you need? Ask for it. Boom, it's there. But that's all going back to work. But I think before the show, you mentioned one word is the privilege. I'm realizing the privilege that I have. But when you grow up in poverty, you grow up oppressed. You know, like you don't understand privilege because you've never had it. But now I do, and it's like this humbling, but also a constant push and play, because you're like, why am I at peace right now when there's people struggling? I should not be at peace. Like I am just like them. I should be hurting too. And so you're kind of punishing yourself. There's this struggle there. And I'm finding that being a community leader right now in the front line of COVID in my community, that it's like, that it's exhausting to go through that process.
Yeah.
Because how do you feel comfortable with privilege?
Yeah. How do you, just reflecting, how do you feel comfortable with privilege, right? Which essentially we don't. But also, I think it gets to this, like, we all deserve good things, right? All of us. Like, and again, this is like one of those blanket statements. Like, I mean, I'm not in the classroom, so I don't need citations, but so take it as my belief. We all deserve good things, right? And the challenge, like you're saying, is that you're experiencing is seeing other people that are struggling and then feeling like that's somehow a reflection of you having too much. And really, when I'm hearing it, it's a question of like, either I'm too much or I'm not enough. Like, I don't deserve all this good stuff, you know? So I'm gonna, because you're my friend, I can do this with you, you know, I'm gonna extend like a reframe to you that we're all connected, right? And so as one person does well, right, there's room, there's more room, there's more help, there's more assistance, right, for those who aren't doing well. Not everyone is going to be in the same spot all the time, right? So sometimes there's models, right? Sometimes there's the teachers. And I know you've struggled. So just because it's your good time right now, you know, I see it all as being cyclical. And this is the payback, right? The compensation for some of the hard times, right? And then the same people that you saw when you were struggling, that you looked up to, they're looking up at you. So it's all cyclical, you know, and I want you to feel good with that, but I am wondering how you're receiving that.
No, yeah. And when you mentioned that in your little short introduction to the show today, I was like reflecting on privilege. And it's like, I have a privilege to have these connections, to be able to apply for grants to support families at this moment, which is a gift to them. But like, one example, I called one place that would not waive a $10 fee. And I stood back and I was like, do you understand what $10 is right now to a family? $10 is a meal for a whole week. You know, so being able to go back and go like, I went through this, I get it, and I'm empathetic to these families right now. But then having the privilege to voice that and getting something waived.
Sure.
You know, but it's a power that you have to get used to it, because it could also, like, if you have that ego driven thing, it can go sideways. So you're constantly checking yourself because it's something new.
I hear you. So you're in awareness. And actually what you're modeling. So yeah, even though, right, just from the sake of like all the injustices that are occurring right now, all of our anti-racist pedagogy right now, a lot of us are trying to check and pay attention to our privilege. But I think the other part of that is like, privilege isn't going to necessarily go away. Vast parts of society would have to shift. But it is one thing to be aware of it and to model what to do with it, right? And so what's one of the things that you're doing right now in modeling is that humility and that acknowledgement of certain levels of privilege, right? And then it brings me back to, and sitting in that space of I don't know and discomfort, right? Your therapy process is parallel to your professional process of like, I know you, Judith, you're like, I'm just a kid from like, you know, like LA, you know, I have immigrant parents and all this, like, I'm not used to like having all this stuff at my disposal. I'm not used to having things, but now you have them and you're doing something good with it. But it takes a second for the self-esteem and the psyche and the way that we see ourselves, like, to catch up. Am I even deserving of this? And yes, you are.
What's funny, one of the things in therapy, she finally stopped me and she said, you have this thing of saying you're not better than anyone. And it was like a constant battle with me. Like, I have this, but I'm not better than anyone. Like, I'm going to keep myself low because I'm not better than anyone. And it's fascinating now that she got that into focus. I see a lot of us doing that.
Sure.
Like, we're stopping our brilliance in a way for like, we don't deserve it.
You know, it's a really fine line to walk, and this is an important one, you know. So I mean, I'm thinking of like so many of my friends and myself in this, right? So, and now I'm taking on the energy of you, of checking my privilege even before the words come out of my mouth. I'll say it this way.
Just say it.
I'll do Chadwick. No, I'll do Chadwick Boseman. You know, it's something to be like young, Black and gifted, young Latina and gifted, young POC, young any minority, marginalized status and gifted, and to try to walk in the world that way and being your awesome self. And then to know that some of your people aren't there with you is actually really hard, to kind of sprint ahead a little bit. And then to be excited and not see your peers, and then to kind of just work through this, like, I wanted this and I'm here. And I don't know how to like be healthy. I don't know how to like distribute my power. I don't, you know what I mean? Or I don't know how to like manage my relationship. So I'm just naming that and giving it space.
And you're hitting a spot right now with me that I'm just like, damn it, Anjali, there you go. Yeah, because it was, again, surviving, just going. But I was growing at the same time because I'm like, I like to reflect, I love to grow. But then at some point, I'm just like looking back and I'm like, where did everyone go? And even my son asked me, do you have any friends left? And it was like, what has happened? Within a period of 3 years, I had to really work through that, like what really happened, because you really don't have the words. And a lot of this, when you grow in poverty, oppression, families that don't talk about their feelings, you can't articulate what's happening. And you kind of have to walk through the therapy to go, oh, this is what happened. And you notice that friendships were codependency in some way. They were feeding some part that you had to heal. And when you unravel it and you heal it, then that attachment's gone. And it's like, oh, there went that friend and it blew up.
Yes, yes. And, and I think that is one of the opportunities and the challenges of the pandemic. So, you and I are talking about how in general we're thriving. It doesn't mean that we're thriving and it doesn't hurt, because you and I are people who kind of check up on one another and call one another, So, yeah, this whole growth game, like, y'all just get to see, like, you get to see my lipstick, but if you knew, you know what I mean, what it looked like when I wake up in the morning, if you knew, I know what Judith looks like with her hair messed up, and like talking to me in her backyard. It's not pretty, right? We are experts, and I'm going to put myself in here. We are experts of, oh, I'm going to cuss, of shining up the shit. So, we're experts of like, making all of the frayed edges look together, because that's actually like the survival skill that was needed, And like you said, COVID, the pandemic is kind of like unraveling some of that, or allowing us not to care, about like, dude, my hair is just kind of messed up today and I'm just going to be okay with that. And I know that sounds so small. Again, that's why, you and I are really thoughtful about trying to check the privilege of that statement. It is small, but it's difference in magnitude doesn't make it any less.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that I struggled with. Like, I have this knowledge and I have this wisdom, but some might not have it yet. And there went I'm not better than anyone.
Yes. You're just humble.
And like remaining humble, but in that you're taking away from your brilliance and how you show up and who you are. And this past week, that's what it taught me, just going to therapy and showing up for these families and creating a space that was like home. We're giving you money, but oh, no, this is not a hand-me-down. You're a family now, and dignity and respect. And it was just beautiful to watch, but you have to be in your full power, your full brilliance, to be able to understand that.
Yes. And the word dignity, that word has been coming up for me for the past 2-3 weeks, and like you said, I love you. I love what you just said. You have to stand in your, you don't need to just be able to stand in your power and in your brilliance, right? And from there, you're able to give and do and share, distribute, right? All the things that you have with your own dignity, but dignifying the people that you're giving to, right? And also because like we chose these roles, but no, like I'm gonna say like we were chosen for these roles, because we're all chosen,
Yes.
right? It's not like our stuff's cuter than someone else. Just we're all chosen. And some of us are choosing to show up. Go ahead. You wanted to jump in?
No, and it was beautiful, because it was like, normally it's like, oh my God, Judith, you're an angel. And I'm like, oh my God, thank you. And this time it was like, it's not me. It's not me. I'm just a vessel, and I'm standing in my power, brilliance, and I'm manifesting what you guys need.
Yeah.
And I'm using my privilege to get that for you. But I'm just a vessel.
Yes. You know what I hear in there? I hear the humility that when you stand in who you are, when you stand in your power, right, you can be humble because then you really know that it's not of you. And it doesn't mean that you're not a good speaker, a good writer, a good dude, a good whatever you
Yeah.
do. You can own that you're good at what you do and know that like the source of it all comes from elsewhere. Yeah.
Bigger than us.
Yes. That's awesome, Judith. That makes me really happy for you. And that's such a huge realization. Do you think you would have realized that without this pandemic?
It might have taken me years or a decade,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but the pandemic has humbled me. I'm not the superwoman that I pretended to be all these years with, juggling all this stuff. Now I'm just like, you know what? Balls drop, just drop, and then I'm paying attention to what brings me joy and what's filling me up and what I was doing just to please someone else. And I'm thankful for the pandemic. And again, that's coming from a place of privilege saying that. Um,
Well, and so I'm gonna
yeah.
say you are super, but you're not a superwoman, right? And like these are really simple differences, but that when we're going 18 miles a minute, um, you can't notice that difference, right? And so that is what the pandemic is affording some of us, right? And but I don't think it's small. I think everyone can benefit from that reflection, right? And at whatever station or level of busyness or privilege or lack of it, right? All of us, this is kind of a premise, I think all of us are in a space where we are considering, who am I? Who do I want to be like now in this new world? I will boldly say that I think we're starting kind of like this new world. I don't think that I find it difficult to believe that everything is going to return back exactly the way it was. I don't think we're going to look like we live on Mars. I don't think it's going to be like a Star Wars like new world, but institutions and structures are falling. I don't think that things are going to be the exact same. So when nothing is firm like that, is this natural moment of self-reflection and figuring out where do I want to be, where do I want to stand when everything kind of gets a little bit more sturdy. And what I'm trying to really push people to do is, what do you want to create, and to as much as you can be a part of that creation without trying to hang on to vestiges of the old world.
Yeah. And I see that a lot with schools and parent engagement. It's like, we've done it so well all this time. And then I think, well, we would have done it well, that baton, when those kids went home to their parents, there would have been no hiccups whatsoever. We would have still had quality education, but we all know what happened. And
Yeah.
so we cannot continue to say we've done this well so long, because we have an opportunity to reinvent ourselves and structures going forward.
And it's, no, I'm sorry, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, and especially when we know that our systems, like, I'm not throwing shade anywhere. It's called history, We know that our systems are based on white supremacy. We know that our systems are based on heteropatriarchy. Dude, white men, cool. I'm not dying y'all. It just is what it is, right? So what are we trying to save if we're trying to recreate the old system? No, we have let it break. And I know that that's so hard. Let it fall, let it break, and then let's make it make it anew. You've heard me say this in multiple ways. I really feel that those who are thriving right now, those who are able to kind of move forward, are people who are able to have technology, access to technology. Let me say that way. Access to technology, practical skills, and are able to either maintain or create social connections. That is all within communal, collectivistic, even feminine aspects, right? That has nothing to do with productivity, capitalism, objectivity, right? Those are the structures that I mean that are falling. And I really want to encourage people to let them fall so that we can recreate in these other spaces, because all of those things, femininity, collectiveness, communalness, have been missing from our structures. Oh, for sure, for us as a country, at least 400 years, but I would say globally, right, for a long time.
Yeah. And I love the word that you said, productivity, because what the heck is productivity right now at this time? What is it?
It feels like this. I know what it feels like, but it doesn't look good.
It's not productive. And I think it's giving us a time for our brain to really like, what have we done to our brains?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm
Absolutely.
feeling like I'm having a shift from pre-COVID to now, like what used to work no longer works.
And you bring that up a lot. You often ask, when I host things of like what's going on to our brains. And so, yeah, there is some reprogramming going on because it's necessary because we're learning something new. We have to be shifting. And even as that comes back to your interest in intergenerational trauma. I know, and now I'm remembering there's an article I need to send you. But anyway, what we know is that with trauma, our DNA in our brain, the connections in our brain, right, change. So the same thing happens when you're in times of peace, right? So yeah, you're right. You're not being hyperbolic. You're not being too much to say that our brains are changing.
Yeah, and I'm being very cognizant on that and paying attention. And what do I need to do to restructure my brain?
Yeah.
So when we do get into this pandemic, like there's a new, I don't want to say a new Judith, but the like a whole Judith, right? Like how I had to function without trauma, without the uh, intergenerational trauma, my ancestral trauma. Like we have the time to really slow down and look at it right now.
And I want to bring in too that like also you're speaking from a place of being a former educator, right? A former math teacher at multiple high school level, right?
Yes.
You're also an elected official, so you hold a lot of spaces. Like my point, I want to like amplify your voice. It's not just fluff and an opinion coming from you, right? So you have held and lived in or are living in the space of administrator, a kind of city administrator, elected official, nonprofit director, and teacher and parent. You have a really rich view of the things that you are observing right now.
Yeah, like I get to observe the patterns. Whether people want to hear these patterns is another thing. I live in a space that these conversations are, I wish I can say uncomfortable, but they're difficult to
Yeah.
have. But there's a lot of changes. The thing though, Anjali, we cannot change those structures until people are willing to do their inner work.
Yep.
And that's what it all boils to. Like I can see this, I could speak about it, but where is it going if people are not willing to change their brain structures to really understand the information?
I appreciate that reframe too of how you're connecting back in the brain structure, right? Yeah, and it's everyone. It's not, it's everyone. It's certainly not the people who are the victims of, or the people who experience the oppression like their job to do the changing, right?
Yeah, and I'm constantly thinking like, okay, I know what's happening. Like I had to go through the structures of oppressions in this community. Like I know what it's like to come out of it. I've done the hard work, but you're not willing to hear it.
Yeah, yeah. It's not that I want to change the subject, but I want you and everyone else, I would say, to walk away kind of on a little bit more of a positive note. And it's not to Pollyanna, it's not to savior this. But I heard you, Judith. You know what I mean? You're tired. These problems are not going to go away in the next 5 minutes. And I want to make sure that you walk out of here feeling fueled up, right? So tell me how you're going to relax this weekend. What are you going to do to chill out and to take care of yourself?
So after this, I'm going to sleep. Uh, like body needs to rest. But for the next, we have 3 days off. I am off work unapologetically. Whatever didn't get done, didn't get done. I need to shut down. So I am going to spend time, and this is, cleaning the house.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been done. Like I've been working in the community. You can't have anyone come in and clean the house. Like here's privilege again, right? But just taking that time for myself. I'm also drawing. So I'm shutting my eyes and sketching stuff, putting on a song that brings back emotions, and then just drawing, and then going back. And I bought myself midlife crisis. I bought myself this expensive set of coloring pencils. I call it my midlife crisis, but
that's really healthy crisis, girl. There's other people that go by cars or like countries, so you're okay.
Yeah, no. So then I'm coloring whatever I draw in. When you go to therapy and you're like, how are you feeling? And you have to like wiggle through yourself, like, how am I feeling right now? But it brings such joy just to like see that visually. And then your brain sees it and you're like, oh my God, there I am as a person on this piece of paper. It's beautiful. So yeah, just spending time with what I enjoy, reconnecting with myself, what I enjoy, because I've been raising kids for 20 years. So it's like, what do I need now?
Yeah. Yeah,
What do
you're
I need?
getting to know yourself, right? And you're getting to know this version of yourself. And I want you to hear from my heart that like you deserve it. You deserve it, and that the more filled up you are, the more you're going to be able to do for other people. And so I want to encourage you to give yourself permission, and to kind of temporarily put that guilt on the side that
Yep.
that you should be doing something. You're doing a lot. We're doing a lot when we're resting. We are fueling ourselves back up, right? So we can go and go hard, and do some of that challenging work that our environments and the society requires of us.
So no, I need to shut down and I know it, and old me would have never done that, but I'm like, nope, I need it right now. So unapologetic, whatever didn't get done won't get done, and I'll go back to it on Tuesday.
Good for you. And even, you brought up cleaning the house, which can maybe not feel like it's rest, but there is something to be said for your space, your environment, right? Being clean, right? So that, and whatever clean means, it doesn't, you know, I, in no way do I want to suggest that cleanliness is only one thing and that there's this opposite that's unclean, and I am not the decider. Whatever that means for you to have order in your home, in your space, in your mind, that allows for good energy to flow in your around you and then also
Yeah.
with you, right? So that's the key there too. Okay. Judith, we're running out of time. You know how quickly this goes. I do want to read a statement here from Vivette, our homegirl. You're finding your way back to yourself after giving your all to raising your children alone. It's a beautiful journey. Embrace it. Yeah, and so thank you to Marita's in here too, talking about Dignidad, and others as well. My mom's of course in here. So I want to thank you on behalf of or with all of them. Thank you, because I know that this is end of the week, end of the night for you. And I love you a lot, Judith. I've gotten so close to you, and it's beautiful and an honor to become your friend through working with you, like through this show.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because I realize the people that I admire are the ones I'm working with, because we get to see each other's work and like our soul and who we really are through our work. So I don't speak a lot about my work because I kind of keep it hush hush, just because I want to connect authentically with people that really do see it.
Well, thank you.
So
Thank you for making me one of those people that you
no,
can.
thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay, everyone. So I want you all to have an amazing, restful weekend, but also please be safe. So don't go do silly things like I'm not going to say. Wear your masks. Be mindful of who you're around. Recognize that even if you're asymptomatic, you can still be sick or you can still get others sick. So enjoy yourself, but just responsibly with others and the community in mind, right? Checking your privilege, right, on that. We will be back next week, and actually, Vivette Dukes will be our guest next week, somebody that we keep referring to.
Yes.
She is also the host of one of the shows on NPU called Speak Your Truth. Okay, everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
All right, that was a great show, guys.